For the past 18 months, the relationship between Bradley and Stacey has had its fair share of ups and downs. But finally, Bradley has got his girl.
Will you marry me?
But what he doesn't know is Stacey has been having an affair with his dad. And for the past year, it's been sex and lies. But now it's all on videotape. And as the evidence of Stacey's infidelity heads off on honeymoon, Bradley has no idea his life could be ruined by the Max Factor. Walford has been shocked and rocked by the antics of many of the residents of Albert Square. No one seems to be content to stay in their own bed. And I should know. In EastEnders Affairs, we'll be pulling back the sheets to reveal those who have betrayed the trust placed in them. Now Sean Slater has found out about Max and Stacey, and he's not happy. But after pressure from Stacey, Sean for now is going to keep some measure of peace. Just north of Walford, the EastEnders crew have made sure that the cast have got to the church on time to film Bradley and Stacey's wedding. But some are confused about how to get into the church.
The car obviously is there, so if we're around the car, around this sort of arc of the car at the back. Today we've got a couple of setups for the big wedding between Stacey and Bradley.
Okay, we will go for a take next, and action!
We're just doing her coming to the church and then her leaving afterwards, and all the bits in between we'll do inside the church.
It's all right, love. It'll all be fine.
We've got quite a few of the icons. We've got June here, we've got Barbara, we've got, you know, obviously Lacey who plays Stacey and Jake who plays Max, so it's going to be a really exciting episode.
I'm here as Max Branning. I'm trying to persuade Stacey to not get married. I think essentially Max is in a complicated position. He obviously wants his son to be happy, but I think he's sort of, you know, he's desperately in love with Stacey at this point.
We've all got things on our mind, haven't we? Sometimes you just got to live with them.
What, and end up like you?
It's my son we're talking about. Look at him, look at his face. What, you want to make him cry, do you?
No, I'd like to make you cry.
But what are you talking about?
He's trying to persuade her to sort of to not go through the wedding and to sort of to make a go of it with him.
Wow, it's the whole thing that's been going on for the past year, really, isn't it?
This tension between Stacey and Max, I suppose.
She's excited, she's scared, she's nervous, she's a bit of everything.
Bradley realises that Stacey doesn't love him as much as he would like her to, and he thinks if he can just get her in the church, get it all over and done with, it'll be fine, everyone will be happy.
But the course to true love had been a rocky ride from the start for Bradley and Stacey.
1, 2, 3, take my hand and come with me because you look so fine that I really want to make you mine.
What now? The first time Stacey met Bradley was she was on her stool with Dino.
Stacey, and
Dino.
Yeah, Dino. This is Bradley. He's one of Jim's grandsons.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, he's starting in the city tomorrow, in a bank.
You don't look at the two of them and put them together, you know.
They're quite all in water, Bradley and Stacey, in a lot of respects.
Do you think I look all right?
Yeah, you look lovely.
Yes, you're all right. Go on, get on with it.
And I'll have your cocoa ready for you, waiting when you get back.
Bradley's not usually the kind of guy that Stacey would go for.
Hold up, look at this.
Oh, she's gonna love you.
Stacey, do you know there's a total of 58 frogs on it?
Well, trust you to know that, you prat.
You're just jealous.
I think at the start Bradley was really keen on Stacey, but she wasn't so keen on Bradley. I mean, she just saw this sort of quite geeky, quite naive character.
What are you doing here?
Who's that at the front door?
It's Bradley, Uncle Charlie.
Ah, you're punctual.
Yeah, I like to be on time.
Good boy.
It didn't start off too well, this relationship, because I remember Stacey had had a drink spiked by Dino. She'd sort of been thrown up and collapsed in the middle of the square.
Quick. No. No, you can't do this to me!
The first real encounter was Bradley trying to put a spiked Stacey onto the bench in the square to try and bring her around. He grabbed her tights to put her on the bench and ripped them by accident. And when Stacey woke up, she thought Bradley had tried to attack her.
Get off me!
No, Stacey, no!
Get off
Stacey,
me!
all right!
So that was their first meeting, yeah, not the best.
I didn't do anything!
But I think just because he's got such a good heart and is sweet to her and treats her like no one else has treated her, that he gonna get to her.
I really like him, he's sweet, it's just, you know...
No good in the sack, eh?
We're taking it slow, Nan.
Because he was so sweet, because there was no side to him, he was just Bradley. He kind of warmed her up.
Look at the pair of you. It's like Romeo and Juliet, isn't it?
I was wondering if you wanted to go upstairs.
Well, are you going to carry me?
There was a bit I wrote where they first sort of went to bed for the first time, and it was so sweet.
He was quite apprehensive about the whole thing. I haven't got any moves.
What?
I'm not all that experienced. Whereas quite loudmouth, brash Stacey Slater
All right, you might not have done it much before, but I have loads.
had, so she said, been with quite a few guys.
Well, I've never done it with anyone who really mattered before.
It was so touching, you know, that she could admit this to him, that she'd never been with anybody she liked before, and generally she'd always been drunk.
So we open this, eh?
No, I don't want to be drunk.
And I think that showed, you know, the depth of feeling that they both had, that, you know, they were going to go into this with their eyes wide open. It was going to be an honest relationship. It was going to be a truthful relationship, but that's not the way it ended.
Here we go.
Hey!
Cake to end all cakes. Bradley found out Stacey was pregnant on his birthday.
They were at the party, and she just went outside, and then they had a bit of an argument about how moody she was.
Right, do you know what? Go home. Because I had enough of trying to second-guess what you're feeling.
And it just came out. It was one of those EastEnders moments. I'm pregnant, Bradley.
I think it was a duff moment.
I think there was a certain love there that she never really had. Look, all I know is that I've got this baby inside me. And I should feel terrified. But I don't.
You know, being 19 and progressing in his job, and the last thing he expected to happen was to become a dad. You know, we've got our whole lives ahead of us, my whole life. I've just started to do really well in my job. I'm enjoying things. We're enjoying things together.
Bradley was sort of work mode, had his work head on, and he was sort of couldn't do it. He was too young, couldn't be bothered.
He'd seen the way his dad had turned out, with the sort of walking out on a young family, and the cheating and the lying, and Bradley didn't really want to be like that.
Just think, Bradley, you have this kid, what's the worst that can happen? Hey, what's your worst fear?
Ending up like you.
He sort of was quite sort of cold, switched off. You know, he said he didn't want anything to do with the child.
Just think it's for the best.
And Stacey, because she loved Bradley, did it, even though in her heart she didn't really want to do it.
You could see it at the last minute. She was so torn. She bitterly regretted it. And I think she sort of turned around and realised she was starting to hate him for what he'd made her do.
Don't bother saying you're sorry. Come on in now. Wipe your feet on my dreams.
That was a dagger in Stacey's heart, because it takes a long time for her to open up. She was standing there in this sort of her surgical gown, like this little tiny, fragile, sort of sacrificial lamb, and you knew Bradley didn't want this to happen. He took one look at her and just almost puked on his shoes. He couldn't bear it. But he boxed himself into a corner.
And in fact, he should have followed his instinct and had that baby with Stacey, and maybe they could have been happy.
You've got to do what you want.
What do you want?
You. Just you.
And Stacey thought, well, if this is what he really wants, but he does want to have children with me in the future, OK, I'll go through with it. She really didn't want it. He broke her heart. Unfortunately, that was the beginning of all a tidal wave of events which would lead to Stacey and Max.
I suppose affairs are kind of the lifeblood of the show, really.
People live in close proximity. They fancy each other. What else are they going to do?
They go for one quick drink at the Vic, and then before they know it, they're romping around Albert Square. That's why we love it so much.
I think a lot of people have affairs in Albert Square is because they're not happy with their partners.
It always made me laugh that we moved, and one of my early lines was, we've moved here to save our marriage. And I thought, who moves to Walford to save their marriage?
There's nothing more dramatic than two people smacking each other and taking lumps out of each other emotionally.
The reason there's so many affairs in Albert Square is because it makes great drama, especially when you get people who are so relentlessly attracted to each other that they'll barge over anything and anybody just so they can get to each other.
Some EastEnders affairs start with lust, some with love, but some just enjoyed the danger. And for nearly a quarter of a century, the women of Walford found out how Dirty Den got his nickname.
Dirty Den didn't really become Dirty Den for no reason. He's a serial womanizer.
Oh, darling.
Never worries too much about being caught.
Hello, son.
You knew he was a bad boy, and yeah, he put his hands up to it. And the attractive thing about Den was when he got caught out, he never apologised.
Well, this should be really interesting.
Oh, interesting doesn't even come close.
I think his motto was, so you've caught me, what are you going to do? You know, he was brazen and a joy to watch, really.
No, I agree with you. I've got the sort of face that needs a slap, so go on, slap me.
No.
Go on, I deserve it. I bet you make a wonderful slapper. Better now?
He had presence, he had charisma, and he had that kind of edge of danger.
I'll tell Dennis, and you'll lose him for good. So if you want a life, you'll have to buy it back from me. And I'll let you know when the first instalment's due.
Den and Michelle was a really interesting one because it was really risky to do that. And this is, you know, when I was a punter watching EastEnders, and me and my mum would sit on the edges of our seats and go, oh, my God, who is it? Who is it? Who's the father of Michelle's baby?
You've had the tests and things?
You name it, I've had it. It's definite, Den, it's a fact.
And the disclosure that it was, in fact, Den, was absolutely stunning.
You're Vicky's dad, ain't you?
Yeah.
But you do get the great love affairs as well, the great passionate love affairs.
If I could turn back the hands of time, then my darling, you'd still be mine.
Pat and Frank is one of the great, great, great love stories of Walford or any other place. Even when they got old, whenever they looked at each other, they saw who they were when they first met.
Pat had been in love with Frank since she was 16, and that's a long time ago. And I think it was always inevitable that they were going to get together and then get together again because she'd always loved him.
Pat never lost that early love that she had for Frank.
She would have been tempted by Frank because he was danger and excitement.
And there's no way that Pat was going to be happy with Roy as a partner.
Come on, love. Why the big meal? What's the special occasion?
I was thinking today about life. My life, what I'd achieved.
He was pretty staid. He was solid and honest and quite a decent human being. And Frank was not.
I wouldn't want you if you came gift-wrapped in your birthday suit in a revolving bow tie.
Frank won her over, as only Frank could. And, you know, if you're Pat and Frank turns up on your doorstep in a revolving dicky bow, Then, you know, you kind of think, to hell with your husband. It's Frank Butcher, and he's one in a million. They carried on an affair after that for quite a few months, and eventually decided that they were going to do a runner to Manchester.
Come on, baby.
And then they were going to go and live happily ever after.
I'll tell you, darling, Manchester's a blinding place. They've got great shops, superb restaurants, and in 15 minutes you're in the countryside.
As much as she loved Frank, Frank ultimately turned out to be the bad lot that he really was.
She knew what Frank was. She knew he was a chancer. She knew he'd let her down. She knew he'd cook up some scheme that would absolutely go pear-shaped and she'd have to fight her way through it.
You promised you'd cancel them vows. You promised you'd tell Peggy in person. You promised to organise a flat.
Is that what this is all about?
Pat got cold feet and, you know, decided to call it off, but it was too late because Frank had already written the letter to Peggy, ending it all.
Frank, what about Peggy?
What about Peggy?
The note.
This incriminating letter is still there, and it's behind the bar, waiting for everybody to see.
And that set in motion probably one of the most humiliating exposures of an affair we've ever seen on EastEnders.
Ladies and gentlemen!
And in front of the entire Vic, she reads this letter from Frank telling her everything.
My dear, darling Peggy, it breaks my heart to say it, but I'm leaving you. I've never quite been able to stop myself loving Pat. By the time you read this, we will both be long gone. With great affection, Frank.
Pat was slapped. Frank was slapped.
Oh. Oh. Hope you all enjoyed the fireworks. Good night.
A very, very dramatic moment.
That was kind of the end of Frank's stint on the square at that point, and he set off shortly after that.
I love you!
Leaving Pat in a wrecked relationship with Roy. Things people do for a revolving dicky boat.
A Slater girl found herself torn between two love rivals as the garage mechanic and the Italian stallion fought for her affection.
Gary's relationship with Lynn, it was an interesting one because he always fancied Cat Slater above Lynn.
Morning, gorgeous.
But in the end, he ended up dedicating himself to her. So it was as on and off rocky relationship as they go.
If you had any respect for me, you'd have told me what was going on.
Well, Gary always had a bit of a sort of raging war with Beppe over Lynn.
I'm taking you out because I like your company. End of story.
Beppe would sort of flirt with her a little bit, and before too long this kind of thing flourished between them, and Lynn was tempted by him.
Hey, what do you think you're doing? What's going on here, eh?
You can't blame Lynn for going with Beppe, I suppose. You know, he was probably more of a man than Gary ever will be.
You've got to read the writing on the wall, mate, OK? It's over between you two. The thing is, I never took Lynn off you. You threw her away.
Gary's stag night. Well, that was one to remember. Beppe asked Lynn to marry him.
I put myself on the line here, Lynn. Don't marry him. Marry me.
And then to top it all off, I think the hens and the stags sort of conclude doing Oops Upside Your Head in the bar. Gary then leaves to find Lynn, and then he sees the silhouette of them at Beppe's place, which then breaks his heart. On the wedding day, Gary did get to church on time, but beforehand, I think there was a bit of confrontation in the gents' toilets.
Not Gary. Oi, do you mind?
Lynn?
Lynn was in the toilet crying, and Gary and Beppe had a few words. They come running in the toilet. I found out of what had happened because I was earwigging and I punched him.
Nice one, Mum.
Yeah, I enjoyed doing that, as it happens.
What's it going to be like with this, huh? All beer and telly and nothing else in between. Is that what you want?
Yeah, well, I resent that.
I'm talking to Lynn.
It was choose him or choose me, Lynn, to which she chose Gary.
Oh.
And once the marriage vows have been exchanged, it's time for a good old-fashioned East End knees-up. And in Walford, there's only one venue for that, the Queen Vic. As Bradley and Stacey get ready for the reception, Peggy Mitchell has laid on a good spread. And it's the responsibility of one man to prepare and cook all the food in Albert Square.
Oh, weddings. I've been doing this 6 years, and I would guess I've probably done about 40 or 50 weddings. And sometimes a wedding isn't just on one day. And usually a wedding involves a hen party, a stag party. So there's quite a bit of work when people get married on EastEnders. I came in yesterday just to sort of prepare, break the backbone of this, but there isn't enough fridge space to put it all up. So I actually turned up this morning at 4:30 just to finalise it.
Christmas, he always does a lovely spread. Last year, the whole place stinks of turkey for about 3 weeks. But no, Steve does a fantastic job.
We're now going off to the Queen Vic to take the food that we've prepared.
But some dishes are best served cold, like revenge.
The Christmas party, that was where it all ended.
Bradley was asked by his boss to sort of arrange the do, and these two sort of events organisers came in to help.
We need full names of everybody, dietary requirements and sex.
Sex? Male or female, not preferences. Last thing we want is Mrs. Yakamoto not getting her freebies.
Lydia being one of them, who Bradley took quite a shine to. She was everything that Stacey wasn't really. She was intelligent, she was classy.
Come and have a drink.
What with you?
We're going to a sake bar on Berkeley Street. Reese likes to show off his Japanese.
Only that's sort of the wrong way for me.
Can't say I didn't try.
She was all excited and she was going to meet his work friends and dress completely differently to how she normally dresses, just to make an impression on his city friends. I just wish I was coming as well.
Yeah, so do I.
Can't you get him to bend the rules just for me? I scrub up nice,
I can't. I want to, you know I do, but there's strictly no guests. He lied to Stacey about the Christmas party because he didn't want her there because he just wanted to be with Lydia.
She found the invitation and I think she just thought, you know what, I'm going to go anyway.
He thought she'd turn up in a very short skirt, have a load of drinks and probably embarrass him.
Lydia, are you OK?
Right, come outside and I'll throw more a glass of wine in your face, you snotty little cow!
I'll take care of it.
At the very end, when they were outside, we saw this really sort of horrible sight of Bradley when he was going on about how he didn't want a baby with Stacey.
Do you know the reason I didn't want a baby? It's because I couldn't bear the idea of bringing up a child with you. Getting stuck with you.
Yeah, well, you ain't ready. I've heard it all before.
No, I'd never be ready for you. And I think Stacey felt quite dirty, quite used, just not good enough, really, which I think was quite upsetting for her. She made her quite angry.
I love you.
Tough.
A little hard shell grew over her heart, and she thought, right, I'm going to make you suffer and weep like I have, and I will get into the very heart of what you believe is yours in the same way that you've got into the very heart of what I believed is mine, and I will trash it like you've trashed mine.
You left me hanging from a thread we once swung from together. I lick my wounds, but I can never see them getting better.
Scuff me!
What do you think you're doing?
Scuff me, you
Calm
punks.
down, will you? Get a grip.
Love him or hate him, since Max arrived on Albert Square, things have got a bit hot and steamy.
I love Max Brennan. He's a very, very troubled, dark soul.
Look, mate, if you're trying to pull, I save you the trouble. I'm taking.
Yeah, me too. Married. I've got 2 kids. I just want my car fixed.
Oh, I've never liked him.
He's a liar and a cheat, and he always will be.
I never liked him from the second he sort of went into the square in his suits, and you could tell he was up to no good.
Sorry.
It's all right, don't be. I bet you get it all the time. Geezers coming in here, taking liberties. They see a beautiful young girl in a boiler suit, they get all excited.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Women in boiler suits, I don't know what it is.
He's quite sexy, but a real git.
Something about Max, Charlie can't get to grips with him.
No, I just figured out what it is about girls in boiler suits.
Yeah, what's that?
It's the zip.
He's a snake, isn't he? He's just one of those people who you just hate.
He is a kind of addicted to lying, and it's a way of keeping everyone at a distance. Even his wife doesn't really know him, and that's part of the game he plays, and he enjoys that.
You got it all sussed, didn't you?
I told you I want this.
I thought you'd given up.
I have.
You know, when it comes to affairs, Max takes on that attitude that, you know, nothing can touch him, nothing can hurt him. And that makes him kind of immune from any fallout, really.
Oh, we shouldn't be doing this.
Why not? It's exciting. Bit of a risk always turns you on.
I think on the one hand he's got Tanya and the girls and his family, and I think he really does love them, and you know they mean the world to him.
I love you.
I love you.
And I trust you.
Good, because I trust you.
No matter how happy or comfortable he gets, he still feels this need to go out and kind of court danger.
Don't be silly.
No, stop trying to change the subject. Who's the new bloke? Is anyone I know?
There is no new bloke.
Stacey sort of came onto him, really, but I think from day one of Max arriving in the square, there's always been something between them. They've always had an attraction for each other. So when am I going to see you again?
You're not.
I like your shoes.
She saw an opportunity, and she knew that Max had an eye for her, and so she seduced him initially.
Go on. He can't touch me.
I think that Stacey knew that was Max's weak point. I think that she thought it would, get back at Bradley if she did that.
Don't you want to know what it's like? Just to kiss me.
It was done to spite. And if you do things in revenge or in spite of someone else, it usually turns out bad.
No one's saying no.
It was like, you got rid of my kid, and I'm going to hit you where it hurts, and, I'm going to start seeing your dad. And if you, trying to think of a revenge strategy, sleeping with someone's dad is a pretty good way to go.
My son's girlfriend.
Not anymore.
Although initially Max resisted, I think also because of his nature, he essentially couldn't kind of resist her, and so that was the first kiss.
I don't know what his feelings were towards her at the beginning there, but she was just trying to get revenge, basically, and in her stupid head that she has sometimes, she just thought, right, I'm going to go for it.
This is wrong.
Yeah, but it's nice, though.
I think it was a spur-of-the-moment thing to get back at Bradley and to hurt him, and that it's just all got out of hand because she's only young.
I'm going now.
You'll be back. You won't be able to stop yourself.
I don't think that Stacey fell for Max to begin with. She got together with Max purely and simply to get back at Bradley.
I want more than a kiss, and you do too.
Just leave me alone, will you?
Call it my Christmas present. You can give it to me any time you like. Tell me you're not already thinking about it.
But after that, she started to fall for him, and they started to connect.
Don't let this low life upset you, all right? He's done you a favour. He doesn't deserve you.
She must have fallen for him in the same way that Tanya did originally. It's that confidence is always attractive to a young girl, I think, especially a young girl that's not always had a father figure around.
But we need to call it.
Oh, just relax, will ya? We're cleverer than him. You've just talked your way out of it, haven't you? You just looked in his face and you lied. Got away with it.
I don't think I enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, you got to be smart, haven't we? Let him think there's another bloke.
She didn't have a dad, and, she saw in him someone who was strong and who was powerful and, was in control. And she found that, I think, quite attractive.
Yeah, well, you have to join a queue, sweetheart, when your wife's already put her.
Oh, where's she now?
It's not my idea. She just can't resist me.
Right, so I've got competition then, have I?
Yeah, well, in my line of work, competition is regarded as good for business.
When any middle-aged man finds a really hot 20-year-old girl, I think it's hard to give that up.
I like you. You like me.
they couldn't stop themselves. They knew it was wrong and they knew they were hurting each other, but like all forbidden fruit, it tastes better.
I cheated myself like I knew I would. I told you I was trouble. You know that I'm no good. I cheated myself like I knew I would. I told you I was trouble. Yeah, you know that I'm no good.
They've nearly been caught out so many times. In the Vic toilets, we spent a whole day filming scenes in there with those two, and Tanya had come in and Sean had come in.
That you in here?
Max is the kind of character who's standing on the edge of the cliff and seeing how far he can lean over, and in the end, he's going to fall over.
It's almost like he's daring himself, just seeing how far he can push his luck.
Hello? Is there anyone in that one?
You know, he's drawn to this kind of self-destructive kind of way of being. You know, obviously that involves other women and the way that he carries on. I think Max is a character that won't take no for an answer. I think he's very single-minded in what he wants. He's a salesman. He's a very, very good salesman.
When she starts telling him she loves him, that's when they know that it might have gone a bit too far, and I think that did shake the affair a bit.
I just wanted to get back at him. I just wanted to hurt him. I didn't expect to fall in love with you.
As they went into it, Stacey had the power because it was such a surprise to him, and it was her idea, and then suddenly she's fallen for him and he realises that, so it all goes about turn, and then he's the one with the upper hand because she's this teenager who's suddenly in love with him and doesn't know how she's got herself in this mess.
Do you even like me?
Yeah, of course I like you. I don't love you, though. I love my wife.
What, you love your wife and you're sticking your hand up my skirt?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, great, thanks. So basically I mean nothing
Look,
to
this
you.
ain't about love, Stacey. It's about sex.
I think that Max thinks that he's holding all the aces and that he can control Stacey.
You just work out what it is you want, Stacey, because it's this or nothing. You make up your mind, you let me know, yeah? Go on. Get out of the car.
I think both of them have control over the affair at different times. Sometimes he's got the control and what he says goes, and sometimes she has it.
Stace, we going?
Bradley's.
But in a way, he's underestimated Stacey and her strength and that Slater gene that she's got that, you know, refuses to be a victim.
How comes you ain't answering your phone?
I'm busy. The whole world doesn't revolve around Max Brannan, you know.
Got an hour free at lunchtime. You want to pop round?
No thanks.
I think Stacey at that point had probably just had enough of Max, you know, promising her that he was going to leave, that you know, that he loved her, that, you know, that, you know, he's going to give it all up for her, and it actually not happening.
Oh, this is it. This is it for me.
Stacey.
No, don't try and talk me round, Max. Do you understand? There is nothing you can say.
You know, and I think Stacey at that point decided that, OK, she was going to give him an ultimatum.
You're going to go home and tell her the truth. Tell her everything. You, me, the lot.
Oh, well, that's ridiculous, Stacey, because I ain't doing that.
I mean it, Max. If you don't, then I will. Now go home and tell her. You've got 30 minutes.
And this is the first time that she's really laid down the law. It's an example of Max suddenly not being able to talk his way out of a corner.
I'll do what you want, all right? Just let me drive you.
You ain't going to change my mind,
I ain't
Max.
trying to change your mind.
Nothing you do is going to change my mind.
All right, just get in the car, OK? We could go quiet tonight, you know, wake up by the sea, really clear our heads.
Do you not understand, Max? I said I didn't want to hear another word.
All right, Stace, I'm just
No, I
saying.
mean it, Max. One more word and I'll phone her now.
All right, I'm just saying. Stace, wait, forget about it, shall we? You and me? Forget about it. Just call it quits.
I don't believe you, because come tomorrow you'll be sniffing round me again.
No, I won't.
She needs to know, Max, so go home and tell her.
What have you done? What is it?
Nothing.
I know you, Max.
What?
Stacey, I can't do this. I can't. We'll have to think again.
You've got 10 minutes, Max, and I'm not kidding. 10 minutes and I'm going to walk across that square. Now call me when it's done. Dad, can I stay up and watch the end of this, please? I'm not sleepy.
No, darling, we're going somewhere.
Now?
Now, we'll pack the bag. We'll grab some clothes. You new bikini. Well, come on, Sam, let's go.
Right. Any toys you want, grab them now.
This is mad.
No, it's not. It's exciting.
That wasn't the first time Stacey had tried to expose an EastEnders affair.
Stop your messing around. Better think of your future.
Yolandi, don't look at me like that.
Pat and Patrick's affair was always light-hearted.
Well, do you know, there's something about a man in a string vest that brings out the worst in me.
It was, you know, an affair that was supposed to be fun, that was supposed to be naughty.
'Cause I couldn't find a thing to wear.
And in a way, no one was supposed to get hurt.
Friends.
Friends.
Honey and Billy are staying with Pat, and they're sort of walking back across the square and going, oh, I don't wonderful being in love. And seeing Pat in her top window.
Is Pat happy, do you think?
Thinking, oh, poor old Pat.
It must get to her sometimes, you know, being on her own.
It's never going to happen for her ever again, is it?
It'd be nice if she found someone.
That ain't gonna happen.
And cut to Pat's bedroom when she's standing at the window with a fag, and she turns round and says,
Ready for round two?
And Pat was lying in bed with the pork pie hat tilted over one eye, looking like he'd been beaten up.
It was Stacey that discovered Pat and Patrick were seeing each other. I think she caught them having a bit of a kiss and a cuddle.
Give me a kiss and I'll go away.
Stacey being Stacey, she's not the type of girl to keep her mouth shut.
Your husband's been having it off with Pat.
And decided to announce to the world that they'd been seeing each other.
Oi.
But it was Pat's sons who stirred up a hornet's nest when they both became involved with the queen of affairs, Cindy Beale.
Cindy, I love you.
The main reason for deciding one character to get involved with another character is, firstly, what's at stake. For example, David and Cindy was a very interesting affair because David was related to Ian, there were kids, and I think you completely believe that someone like Cindy will be drawn to someone like David, who's kind of smart and slick and good-looking.
So when can I see you again? I mean, properly.
Whenever you want.
She puts up with Ian and his inadequacies for the money, really.
We don't have to go straight away. I've got my own bank account. Ian puts money in every month. We can save as much as we need over the next year.
Both of the Wicks brothers had their eye on Cindy from the moment they arrived on the square. She loved the attention, she loved the danger, and so did they.
She was such a bitch of a character as well, that you couldn't help but hate her.
I'm not sleeping with David!
Really?
Look, Ian, you either take my word for it or just get the kids and I go.
For some reason, despite the fact that you hate him normally, you really fell for Ian Beale.
If you're going to have an affair, Ian Beale's probably, you know, the husband that you should be having.
Blimey, who's that?
Because he really doesn't seem to notice what's going on under his nose.
Ian!
Oh, mate.
When he finds out, he doesn't really do much about it anyway. He invariably begs you to come back.
Don't go like this. Not after everything we've been through.
You can go back to a safe, happy family and he'll carry on being the muppet that he is.
And if there's going to be a showdown, the Queen Vic always has the best seats in town.
Are you two sleeping together?
Martin!
Well, are ya?
You're making a show.
Well, I'm not moving until you give me an answer, Sonia.
No!
Well, there's something going on.
Nothing's going on, all right? It was just a kiss.
Don't you wish your girlfriend was hot like me? Don't you wish your girlfriend was fun like me? Don't you?
With Sonia and Naomi, I think it was much more about Sonia sort of rebelling against the kind of prison of the Fowlers.
Your mum's world exists between your back gate, the fruit and veg stall, and the laundrette. The world's bigger than that.
She got to a point in her life where I think she started to feel hemmed in by Walford and by a marriage to Martin.
You're trying to turn me into your mum. Well, it ain't gonna happen.
You really think that's what I want?
And the name he offered, you know, just a different aspect on life.
What do you think, Martin?
About what?
Well, is the fascination with Asian cinema passing fashion or a genuine appreciation of an art form?
How am I supposed to know?
And I think it's that, really, that attracted them to each other.
Come on, I thought I was coming out for a fun night out, not to listen to some arty-farty cobblers.
She's really calculated, Naomi. She saw that as an opening to write. She's at a vulnerable state.
Naomi, the last few months have been a living hell.
This is it. I'm going to go in for the kill.
Who have I got?
You got me. The first kiss was so scary between Naomi and Sonia because I've never kissed a girl before. It was hard because she's got small lips and I felt like I was eating her head. It wasn't revealed that they were together and Martin came bursting into the house to find Sonia on the sofa, covering herself with a duvet and Naomi, like, in her dressing gown. It wasn't an argument, but it was exciting. I think one of the best arguments, clashes in this whole love triangle thing and Martin's was when Naomi and Sonia decided to go into the Vic for the first time.
Oh, come on, don't give up on me now.
Naomi's very confident and says, we've got nothing to hide, let's just deal with this.
I want to get this over with, I want to apologise.
Naomi boldly goes up to Martin to say, listen, no love lost, I've got your wife. It's okay, let's move on.
And that's nothing compared to what you really deserve.
Pauline and Martin follow us out, ranting and raving. I'm dripping wet. Sonia's trying to defend me. Pauline comes out with the most evil kind of slurs about Sonia's family.
You're just a typical Jackson, you are. Just snapping the fingers, there you are, flat on your back. What you say?
Wait, Mum, go on, all right.
But Naomi realised that this was all just fun and games for Sonia. I think she was just experimenting.
Naomi!
And whereas Naomi was seeing this as a future, settling down with Sonia, her head was still with Martin and Rebecca. I don't think she saw that coming at all.
Once Max had done his runner to Spain, Stacey's burning desire for him started to diminish.
After Max has dumped her and just seemingly disappeared, she's bereft, she realises what a fool she's been. In the end, it's Bradley that pulls her out of that, and he's kind to her, and they kind of start to build up that friendship again.
We sort of got to have that date after all, didn't we?
Date?
Oh, yeah, I mean, food and a movie.
What, you think this counts?
It's food, isn't it?
Barely.
Over time, he sort of slowly and surely began to realise that Stacey was the one that he actually wanted to be with, ultimately.
Bradley's gentleness makes Stacey a little bit gentler, and Stacey's toughness makes Bradley a little bit tougher.
How'd you do that?
Do what?
Oh, all that sales patter.
Oh, it's just talk, Bradley.
I think in her, he sees everything that he wants to be, really. I mean, he wants to be this confident person.
You want to know about sales?
Well, you know, I do have an A-level in business studies.
You just look them in the eye and tell them they're a knockout. Even if it is Pat Evans. There we go. Can I show them what you can do?
By this point, Stacey was very grown up, and she knew it of herself, that she'd really kind of gone to the furthest limits of just how duplicitous it is possible to be.
I can't do this. I'm really sorry, I can't.
And Bradley was so wide-eyed and optimistic and hopeful and wanting so much to make things better and to make things better for her and to completely make up for what he'd done to her with the abortion.
And finally, in the end, she tentatively goes out with him on a very limited basis.
I just thought this was going to be a fresh start, you know. No one round here knowing our business.
All right, calm down, Stacey. It's not as if we're dealing with the FBI, is it?
I'm serious.
Finally, he's not sure what's holding her back. He gets down on bended knee and proposes to her.
Will you marry me?
At which point she realises after 6 weeks, Max has come back. And she wants to put Bradley in between her and Max and stop the temptation and keep away from him. And I think, finally, that's why she says yes.
While Max was in Spain, he realised that he wanted to be with Stacey, essentially that he loved her and that he didn't want to live his life without her, that he was prepared to give Tanya and the girls up, that he wanted to be with her.
I thought maybe I could forget you, put all this behind me. I was only meant to be there for 2 weeks. Every night, sitting on the balcony watching the sun go down, all I could think about was you.
And I think, unfortunately for Max, at that point, Stacey had, had sort of rejected him.
I'm with someone else.
Who?
Oh, you know him. His name's Bradley. We're getting married.
When Max finds out that Bradley has asked Stacey to marry him, I think Max gets a pang of something in his guts that makes him not want it to happen.
Stacey Slater, I love you. Will you marry me?
Yes.
This whole relationship with Max is getting more and more, ugly, really. It's just getting uglier and uglier and more tortuous. And I think she leapt at the chance to marry Bradley. Yeah, I'll marry you, because that was a way of absolutely calling it quits.
Stacey? Stace?
Weren't you listening last night? I said no.
He wasn't going to let this go, not without a bloody fight. Really, not without a fight. He still wanted her, and suddenly now his son was the victor. No, he wasn't going to have this.
Come in. Let's get coffee.
That's when it starts to get very complicated. Max is then sort of actively pursuing her.
Do me a favour. You and me, we ain't over.
He's very jealous and he really hates it. And he realises that if Bradley gets married to Stacey, she'd be right under his nose all the time, but just out of reach. And he just can't stand it.
1, 2, 3. Oh.
Then he chases her hard. He does that to Tanya, he does it to, Stacey. It's his forte, is the hunt.
What are you doing?
I just want to talk to you.
No, just get out. Stop touching me. What makes you think you can touch me?
I'm sorry, I can't help myself.
And he comes over and is saying that he realises what he's done and he misses her.
I've made mistakes. I've made loads of mistakes.
You ran away. Was that a mistake?
No, mistake was not taking you.
Oh, Max, I'm
Look, Stacey, please, I want to make it up to you.
She's not having any of it. She's really put her foot down, and however much she wants to say, yes, this is going to work, and yes, we'll do it,
I've made loads of mistakes.
she can't and won't do it to Bradley. Oh, Max, I'm
Look, Stacey, please, I want to make it up to you.
Don't do this.
Look, I can have a bag packed in 10 minutes. We could be at the airport in half an hour. Please.
She's trying to do the right thing with Bradley. She's rejecting Max and trying to move on in her life.
We can't see each other again.
What do you mean? I don't
Not
even
when it's just
understand.
us. There's other people there. Tanya, Bradley. Then that's okay. Just not me and you.
It's an interesting reversal to the situation before he just left, when she, really, felt that she was in love with Max and wanted to make a go of it with him, and Max wasn't able to do that.
Can't we just...
No, Max. It's too much.
But on the eve of the wedding, Max still hadn't given up.
You look gorgeous.
Someone was about to find out the truth about Max and Stacey.
This is the suspense where we keep everyone on watching for the rest of the week, where basically this is where it's revealed that I know about Max, and I'm the first person to find out about Max. And of course everyone's going to be watching because they're going to be waiting for me to kick 7 shades out of him, so here we go.
Thank you. We are recording 13:12, scene 29, take 2.
This is scene between Stacey and Max, and obviously it's their hen and the stag night. So we've come out from that to end it. Leave me alone, Max.
Yeah, well, that's the problem, Stacey. See, I can't.
Marrying your son tomorrow.
He's always put Stacey on a pedestal, and she's always been the little angel in his life. And now that image is sullied and it's dirtied. And it's heartbreaking for him to have to see that the one person that's always been perfect to his eyes is touched by him.
Everything's just going to get worse, Stacey. Lingering looks, lingering doubts, close enough to touch each other, but never actually being able to, never able to be together. And that's a living hell. Is that what you want?
Touching speech, Max. Why don't you save it for the wedding?
Please. Please.
It's over, Max.
All EastEnders affairs must eventually be exposed, and many end in violence.
He may be the face I can't forget.
Arthur Fowler was on the receiving end of Pauline's fury when she found out about his affair with the vivacious Mrs. Hewitt.
I remember Mrs. Hewitt and Arthur quite well, actually. It was always an affair that you never kind of expected.
Arthur and Mrs. Hewitt, yeah, that was a bit naughty of Arthur, I thought.
Arthur and Mrs. Hewitt was genius.
You felt like if Arthur could have an affair, then anyone could, because he was nice.
Mrs. Hewitt. Hello, Pete. She come to pick up her car 5 minutes ago.
Yes, thanks ever so much.
He's the family man. He's the rock of the square.
There's nothing like having another woman on the scene for a wife to keep on her toes.
What? Do you mean Mrs. Hewitt?
Yeah, why not?
Arthur is the one you can rely on, and I think that's why his affair with Mrs. Hewitt is so shocking.
Pauline, of course, inevitably found out because all affairs must be discovered at some point.
What are you talking about?
I'm sorry, really.
For what?
I've been having an affair.
She went absolutely bonkers.
Don't keep saying you're sorry!
And this was the fantastic, fantastic occasion where she picked up a frying pan and belted Arthur round the nut with it.
It felt kind of comic and trivial in a way, but it also felt very, very real, and you knew exactly what they were feeling.
And Jane played with fire when she had an affair with a Mitchell.
What attracted Jane to Grant? Well, he was everything that Ian wasn't.
Got my hands dirty for you. What more can I do to prove my devotion?
With Kathy dying and everything else that was going on with Ian, he neglected her quite badly. There's always someone else with you, and it's always something more important than me.
Oh, that is not true.
It feels true. Last night it was money, and tonight it's getting one over on Phil.
All right, well, you can still go shopping. I'll stay and look after the kids.
You're damn right I can still go shopping. I don't really blame her. I think it was all to do with that she leaned towards someone who would listen to her. But what upsets me is when he behaves like that, people just think he's being a jerk when he's not. And was very attractive to her physically.
I'm saying nothing.
Stop looking at me like that. And I think a lot of people that enjoyed that storyline loved the fact that she was this normal woman that the hunk wanted. Sorry, didn't mean to offload all of that. I hate sounding disloyal.
You didn't?
She didn't want to betray Ian, but feelings took over and she wanted to have a bit of excitement.
Before you knew it, they were having a very dirty episode on a desk in Scarlet.
Are you sure this is what you want?
Yes. And that's when he clears the table, puts her on it, and, yeah, very, very sexy. It was lust, absolutely, to begin with Grant. It was a massive gamble. I think it was a gamble she just didn't want to take.
I got your message.
He can't believe that she's choosing Ian over him. Yes, I am!
That wasn't the first time Grant had lost control. On another occasion, it was his brother on the receiving end. Grant had discovered Phil had been having an affair with his wife, Sharon.
think one of the most memorable affairs has to be Phil and Sharon. The whole Sharon Gate story was really gripping and really sexy.
Sharon Watts is one of the most dangerous women that EastEnders has ever had. She is an unexploded bomb.
There's an engagement party that's going on at the Vic. Everyone's happy. They're toasting Kathy and Phil. They're saying, well done, true love. What can possibly go wrong? Happiness awaits. Of course, everything has to go wrong.
What about Phil? You slept with him, remember?
It was just lust.
So the next thing we know, the tape's being played in public.
In 1 minute I was looking at him, in the next, ripping each other's clothes off.
There's Sharon, there's confessing to sleeping with Phil, there's tears.
Nothing happened.
You slut.
That was the beginning of the terrible, terrible fight between Grant and Phil that led really ultimately to Grant getting into bed with Kathy, which led ultimately to the two men flying through the air in a car and crashing into the Thames.
Here's another recording about to cause even more destruction as Max tries once again to get Stacey back.
Okay, stand by then, and action.
Okay.
What are you doing here?
Just wanted to make sure he was all right.
You should go back. Stacey goes to get changed before she goes on honeymoon, and he does what he always does and tries again and again and again.
As long as you're sure he made the right choice in terms of what he wants, in terms of his love for his family and his love for Bradley, it's a bit of a mess.
I'm sure.
But Max and Stacey are unaware they are being filmed.
This video camera, it's everywhere. It's got everything on it.
Well, the video sort of is out there, isn't it? I think Bradley and Stacey have taken the video camera on the honeymoon with them, and we'll have to just sort of wait and see what happens with that.
You all right?
Yeah, camera.
There you go, look. It's fine. Right, better get going, ain't you? Yes.
Once the honeymoon is over, the wedding video gets transferred to DVD, and the time bomb starts ticking to expose Max and Stacey's affair.
At some point, someone's going to have to look at it. Everybody checks their video cameras.
It's going to be pretty explosive. I think all hell will break loose.
I don't know if Tanya and Max will survive it.
It's going to be absolute carnage.
Who knows what will happen with it?
And we take a closer look at the ongoing learning curve that will transport some of our celeb scissor hands to stardom next.